Hello and welcome back to the Bankstown Line podcast featuring Phil from City Trains Vlogs.
Hello, it's Phil. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. And in this episode today, we'll be talking about Canterbury Station with our guest Phil from City Trains Vlogs. So without further ado, let's get into it. Canterbury Station is the fourth station on the Bankstown Line and was opened in 1895. Canterbury Station consists of two separate platforms with a station building on one platform towards the city and just a general platform on a platform towards Bankstown. It consists of an overhead road bridge towards the city end of the station, which has recently been upgraded with lifts and new stairwells. Next to Canterbury Station, as well as the other stations on the line that we've spoken about so far, is the goods line, known as the Metropolitan Goods Line. It runs along most of the Bankstown line before spreading off at around Campsie.
What I like about Canterbury Station and pretty much the entire Bankstown line is back when I started train spotting, like getting out there by myself back in 2006, the Bankstown line had a large, and I mean a large variety of trains. Like you had the R sets, which is just like an S set but six carriage, the Super Six. They had the S sets, Tangara, Millennium. Didn't have the Waratahs yet, so the line wasn't so overrun with those. They didn't have the K sets at that time. The reason why I like Canterbury out of the entire Bankstown line is it does have a good spot for freight spotting at the Bankstown end of platform number one. The first time I actually went freight spotting there, I got my first photos of what was the loco number? GM27, which is owned by SSR, I believe, in its new livery. Back then, it was its new livery back in say 2014, maybe. But yeah, ever since then, I've really liked the freight spotting there. It's always had a great variety of trains. Even now, you've got the A and Bs, the Ms, the Ks. So it's still pretty entertaining there and all along the Bankstown line.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And actually, there has been some occasions where they actually run the Tangaras along the line too, because I seem to have noticed they've made a slight little secret change to the timetable where normally on Saturdays and Sundays they'll actually run Tangaras on the T2, T3, and T8 lines. Because firstly, because I thought they actually stopped running Tangaras, but I was on, for those who have seen my video would know that when I was on the Explorer from Canberra to Sydney, I actually saw a couple Tangaras going past. I think actually two directly, one Tangara, then another one directly behind, both headed towards Macarthur. So I have been taking a look and seeing that there are some Tangaras. So, I mean, who knows? Because especially with the new T6 Bankstown shuttle line, I call it, even though it's the Lidcombe and Bankstown line, they're shortening the platform at Bankstown, hence why they're going to be closing between Campsie and Bankstown first. So it will be interesting to see what train runs on the line. My best guess will probably be the Millennium trains.
I think so,
But
yeah.
yeah, but other trains could potentially be like K-sets or Tangaras, but I doubt those will be running on the line. But another potential option is the Oscar H-set as well once they get converted to suburban services. So that could be another potential as they can easily be split between 4 and 8 carriages. But I guess we'll find out what happens there in a few weeks' time.
Yeah. And another thing to add to the variety of trains on, well, let's just say the Bankstown line is last weekend, the one just gone, when they were running the heritage trains, the steam train and F1, I noticed that an Explorer passed me twice on the goods line. It was something to do with the new regional fleet testing, something to do with crew training, I think. But yeah, so that was actually quite interesting to see. And mentioning when you just mentioned Oscar, then I heard that there was actually an Oscar on the Bankstown line the other day, H7, I think it was. Was doing some kind of shakedown testing after its upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably make sense, probably why it would probably be running on the Bankstown line, at least the Bankstown shuttle line. But I did actually see that Explorer because I was tracking a lot of the trains online on that weekend, and I did notice an Explorer going past. But one interesting thing as well is that I'm not exactly sure. I know that Campsie, I think, is one of them, but I'm not sure about the other one. It might actually be Canterbury. But on the timetables, quite interestingly, it actually still shows like Campsie goods platform, Canterbury goods platform. So you can definitely tell that there probably was some sort of platform originally at Canterbury Station, but it actually makes me wonder if potentially it wasn't actually for like regular suburban services, but rather maybe kind of the freight train services. I don't know, maybe there might be a crew change sometimes that used to happen at Canterbury. So definitely would have been interesting if we still had that to this day. Kind of similar to what's at Road Station as well, how they normally put the freight trains on that island platform just there, and sometimes run a few trains through there.
Yeah, the track could have been realigned. It's
Yeah.
interesting though that the goods platform at Campsie is still there, both of them actually. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I do remember before they put up that horrid fence, I must say, at all the stations, they used to have a perfect view of the goods trains going directly past you on the Bankstown end of Platform 1, but I'm not sure if they've extended the fence all the way to the end or just on most of that edge of the platform, but they've put up the big fencing now, so it blocks a lot of the view of the trains, and of course, I'm sure they'll most likely I mean, I'm gonna guess they would either shorten platform 1 so it doesn't have that really thin section for the metro, or they'll maybe, I don't know, probably maybe realign the goods line, but my most likely bet is that they would probably have to shorten the platform there and extend it out a little bit more. Because I have actually noticed, at, for example, Helston Park Station, they actually have resurfaced the platform, but there's an end, the Bankstown end of the platform has about a carriage or two, where it's just kind of dips down. It's the old platform. And I actually was speaking to one of the workers that were working at the station, then asking what that was all about. And they were saying that it's actually that they're going to be building the platform only to 6 carriages, I believe. And I think they might be fencing off that remainder of the platform. So they're still going to technically have it there when they do, or if they do eventually extend the length of the metro trains to 8 carriages. But yeah, I actually didn't know anything about that. So that was quite interesting as well.
Yeah, speaking of the fence at Canterbury Station at that point, the Bankstown end of Platform 1, the fence, that big, tall fence, seems to be put out a little bit more. So it looks like there is room to widen the platform at that end where it's really, really narrow. The good thing is the fence isn't complete there at the moment, so there was actually still a pretty good view of the freight trains. Only bad thing about that is about that part, that area is it's great on a cloudy day because on a sunny day the sun is never in a good position. Kind of like the inner west line, between say Redfern and Burwood. The sun's usually not in a great position for the entire
Yeah.
day.
I can definitely say that for Summer Hill Station, it's a weird, it's my bad luck, but every time I'm at Summer Hill, the sun's always in just the wrong spot. So you've got this weird thing where like Lewisham Station is in the sunlight, it looks beautiful down there. I'm like, ah, bummer, wish I went down there. But then at Summer Hill, it all gets into the shade. It's all dark and gloomy. And one time, I actually went, okay, well, the sun's down at Lewisham. Let me go down to Lewisham. I got there, and then of course the sun went away. So yeah, there's a lot of weird spots along the line that get a bit of sun, don't get a bit of sun, but I'm sure that they've been, unfortunately, but they have to cut down a lot of trees as well to make way for the new infrastructure and everything. So even riding along the Bankstown line, because I was on Red Set F1 on the Sunday, I was actually for once taking a good look out the window instead of recording, and I actually noticed a whole lot of new. I think the services building for the new metro line, including one I believe that was kind of near Belmore, I believe. Um, and they've actually done a pretty good job because originally the only services building that I knew of that was along the line was kind of near Marrickville Station. I didn't really like that one. But they've actually, I can tell they've done more work on it because they've actually kind of blended it into the train line. It actually does give off some metro vibes. It actually, for some reason, reminded me of Cherrybrook Station because kind of had that white sort of concrete and it had these brand new little trees alongside of it. So you can tell that they've done those services building and stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting to see that sort of thing along the line. And I wonder if they'll like extend the canopy or anything at Canterbury, as a lot of the station is not under a canopy.
Yeah, they very well could do so, or at least for the middle portion, say, oh, I don't know, the middle four cars, let's say,
Yeah.
that sort of length. Yeah. Speaking of, just going back to the view of freight trains, I
Mhm.
discovered a little something the other day when I knew that G516 in the Swift livery was coming, heading towards Port Botany. This was at Helston Park Station. There's a little part it was on platform 1 at the, let's say, city end of the station building on platform 1, where there's this little nook where you can see right down the goods line and get a pretty good approach shot of anything headed towards Port Botany. So
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about with that one.
I finally got a good photo of one of the I think two G classes in the Swift livery, which I was actually quite happy about because I've
Yeah.
completely missed out when they're in the Lynx cargo care livery. But yeah, that was pretty cool as well. So I'm just sort of trying to suss out spots, along the Bankstown line where you can still get good photos and things of freight trains. Another spot being the stairs headed down to the light rail stop at Dulwich Hill. You can get a pretty good approach shot of freight trains headed into Port Botany as well.
Yeah. I definitely think that once Metro eventually uh, resumes operation, or the train line itself, the Bankstown line resumes operation for Metro services, I have a pretty good feeling that it's going to become a little bit of a competition where who can get the best photo of a brand new Metro train next to an old freight train. Because I don't actually think there's any points of the Metro line from Sydenham to Tallawong at the moment that actually has any corridors next to any freight corridors, primarily because like 90% of it is underground, except for Bella Vista to Tallawong and a little bit of Sydenham. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see the metro trains run kind of out in the open, because it's almost kind of like the look of the metro trains almost feels like a train that wouldn't normally be running around through the suburbs much, kind of more of an underground rapid transit line. So I must say,
Yeah,
I'm definitely a little bit surprised about their choice of choosing the Bankstown line for that extension. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see those metro trains kind of traveling along through the suburbs in the inner west while still being above ground.
yeah, it'll be very interesting because the metro trains are kind of difficult to get photos of. There'd be a couple of good spots, I suppose. I don't know, along where they're out in the open and stuff like that, near Rouse Hill and things. But
Yeah,
they're not very easy to get photos of. Um, I've noticed, obviously because of the platform screens and things like that. So it'll be
yeah,
good. I'm sure that there'll be a few spots along the Bankstown Lane where you'll be able to get those kind of photos. But it's hard to know what they're going to do, what plans they have between now and the time the Bankstown Line is open as a metro train line, because I guess that they will be tweaking a few things, concourses, all these other things outside the platforms themselves might change a little bit. So yeah, that's something to sort of investigate more when it's closer to the line opening as a metro line.
yeah. And I actually heard recently that they are going to be making all the because there's a lot of overpasses over the Bankstown line, and for like the safety, because they don't want anyone on the tracks on the metro line, because obviously one of the main things that a lot of people are concerned about, which I'll get to because I learned some more information about it the other day. I'll get to that in a second, but they actually are required to put at least 3 meter high fencing on each overhead bridge. And I actually noticed recently that they did that exact thing at Sydenham. So on the main road that goes over the, I think it's the Marrickville Tempe end of the station, they used to have a very short fence. I always looked at going like, I don't know about that. But recently they've made it nice and tall, so it will show you kind of what's to come. So unfortunately, that would probably mean that a lot of the spots off overpasses will disappear once the metro line's opened, as well as the fencing being a lot taller as well. Because I mean, the existing fencing on the train line, a lot of people can like work their way around it. I don't know how they do it, but I mean, it's kind of like the original chain sort of fencing, so they can easily get like these chain cutters and everything. And I believe that they're using a lot of these anti-climbing fences as well. And one thing that a lot of people were actually concerned about was that how are the metro trains going to slow down or stop if there's a person on the tracks? Like, there's no sensors on the front of the train, and they've said that they've gotten a prototype that they've already tested where they're going to have fencing along the entire side of the line, but it's actually going to have sensors on it, so it can detect if someone is attempting to interfere with the fence, trying to get in or climbing over, and then that will automatically send a message to the metro train to either stop or slow down a lot. So that'll
That's
be
an
very
idea.
interesting to see, and I'm sure that'll be part of their testing, that they'll do something like that, and most likely they'll share that online, kind of like a media sort of release of it, where the media gets to travel along and see what happens when someone interferes with the fence, and to see if the metro train slows down. So that will be very interesting, a lot of that sort of stuff, because I know a lot of people, including myself, were worried about like witnessing someone run across the tracks in front of you, and not to mention like you can look out the front window of the metro train, which would be quite traumatic if you were seeing some stuff that no one should ever really see whilst traveling between Sydenham and Bankstown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be really traumatizing to see. But I'm sure that explore every avenue of, I don't know, ways of avoiding that. Like you mentioned about the sensors and everything like that. It'd be interesting to see the testing, how they'd test these sensors and things like that with people tampering with the fence. Like, would they just put a panel of the fence up and get someone to, I don't know, kick at it, try and snip at it with bolt cutters or something like that, just to see if, yeah, if these sensors do go off. It'll be interesting to see how it all works.
Yeah, because I have been actually wondering a lot about like what's a lot of like where are all these points where you can get like the metro testing going on along the line? Because I'm sure that once the line closes, everyone will kind of be like keeping a little eye on the Bankstown line, kind of going like, where can I get these view of the metro trains tested and everything? But I am interested to know though what will happen at Sydenham because I know they have a lot of junctions that branch off at everything, a few temporary ones, and they actually already effectively have a track heading out of the metro platforms towards the Bankstown line. It's just cut off just before it branches onto the Bankstown line. So it will be interesting to see how they incorporate the tracks in there. And I do know that there's this park. I've got the name of it now. I believe it's called Tillman Park actually. And I actually used to go there a lot when I was younger, and it's actually a really good point for train spotting because there's this kind of area of rocks and bushes. Kind of, it's fairly overgrown now. It used to be well kept before. I'm not too sure about now, but you actually got a perfect view of the goods line bridge that would go over the train line, so you'd always hear the freight trains rumbling along through. And also, even when like originally before the junctions were there, because now there's a temporary speed restriction for all Sydney trains coming through to the Bankstown line, they have to go fairly slow. But originally, before they had that, and while the trains were still going on platforms 1 and 2, I remember going there once, and like the Bankstown line trains would fly past, and there'd be like this unique shot where you'd see like a Tangara racing along behind it, and then like a, I don't know, M set or a K set or something, even an S set, because I actually remember seeing S sets and C sets fairly often branching off the Bankstown line there. So that is something that I will miss, but I'm definitely interested to see what it will look like, how fast. I mean, metro trains are always very fast, like their acceleration is insane. So, yeah, hopefully they keep that spot of the park well kept and everything, because I definitely will want to go there once they begin testing and eventually open the line towards Bankstown, because it'd be very interesting to get some shots, even when they still do the heritage weekends and stuff, like they do the occasional heritage steam train ride on the T4 line, because originally the only point where you could get an okay photo of the metro train next to a heritage train was at Chatswood. But I believe now you can kind of get a good photo at Sydenham. But the main problem is, of course, that really tall fencing that a lot of people, like, especially at Dulwich Hill as well, worried about, like, oh, what if I'm not able to get a good photo of the metro train and the freight train or steam train? So that will definitely be very interesting to see. So hopefully they don't put up insanely tall fencing along the metro line, although knowing how they're building it, they're most likely going to, which would unfortunately kind of block off the metro line, show that it's almost like it's not there, whilst having the trains kind of more out in the open.
Yeah, separating the metro from freight corridors um, or passenger lines. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm like 95% sure they will do that. But hopefully, there's some vantage points where, I don't know, like a concourse or a footbridge or something like that, where you're able to sort of look down over both like a freight corridor or just a regular Sydney trains passenger line and a metro next to each other.
Yeah, because I do know that at a lot of the stations on the Bankstown line that are being upgraded, they whilst it's good to have artwork on there, it is a little bit frustrating, especially with the train spotting point of view, because they've actually been installing like little artworks, I believe at all the stations along the line between Bankstown and Sydenham, where it has this the new overhead bridges are effectively very similar to each other. They kind of have this like grey, like dark grey kind of metal look to it, and the glass panels are still there, fairly similar to what's at Sydenham, except they actually have these artworks along them. So I actually did once try and get like a photo of a freight train that was coming past at Dulwich Hill Station, but they've put this yellow tint on there, which I feel like is almost like, what's the point of that? Because I believe they have these yellow tints on each of the windows along these at the stations along the Bankstown line. And it is a little bit frustrating because it actually does kind of stop you from getting like a quick shot, like, I don't know, if a metro, sorry, not a metro train, a freight train quickly comes around the corner and like, oh, I've got to get a photo of that. And like you've got this yellow like glazed sort of window thing, which I would be quite frustrated about. So hopefully they'll have one station where it's not like that.
Yeah, there might be something, but as I said before, like those kind of things that they'll be changing between now and the time that Metro opens. Um, yeah, we'll have time to investigate, I guess, where these good spots to get photos will be.
Yeah, exactly, and I agree with you on that one. But yeah, there'll be. I mean, I'm sure they'll still have the area, the vantage point at Dulwich Hill Station, where you can kind of view off to the freight line. Because I'm almost certain that they'll most likely not really interfere with the fencing on the freight line side of the train corridor. Because I noticed they're more like working on the actual Sydney Trains line, which will soon become Metro line side, where they have that tall fencing. So I wouldn't be surprised if, as a just to probably make it a little bit easier, so they don't have to like close the goods line and everything, that they most likely just put fencing along the Metro line and leave the freight line pretty much mainly out in the open. So hopefully at Dulwich Hill, they'll have it where like you can get like the metro train curving around the corner into the platform whilst having a freight train also curving along. But it's just a matter of time to find out whether they'll have the fence there or not. Because I do know that unfortunately it's like a very tall fence, and it's one of those. Whilst it's good, like it's an anti-climbing fence and everything, with cameras especially, like even just putting your phone through there, like it's really difficult to just perfectly zoom in through the little tiny grills just there. There are sometimes where you're lucky, but like especially from a distance, you can also interfere with the camera and everything. So you got like this black flashing and everything, which hopefully they won't have at least at Dulwich Hill Station, because I would say that Dulwich Hill Station is probably one of my most favorite spots to like vantage points to train spot with freight trains and the regular trains on the line. So hopefully they don't do too much there.
Yeah, Dulwich Hill's pretty good. It's probably definitely one of my top three for the
Yeah,
Bankstown line.
definitely. Just found an old photo of the station. Um, what year is this? In the earliest 20th century, and I'm actually taking a look, and I can actually kind of see what I saw before. So I can. There's a photo from what seems to be that Canterbury station used to have four platforms, I believe,
Oh wow,
unless this is
nice.
from the same angle. But from what I'm guessing is the goods line, it's got this photo of a steam train just rushing past the photo there. But the platform, the goods line platform that's now disused and now fenced off, it actually shows it as a proper platform, and it's actually got three tracks for the goods line coming past. So there could always be a chance that's actually Canterbury Station itself. But from what it looks like in the terrain sort of area, which they wouldn't have interfered with much, that it used to be there. But I must say Canterbury Station has definitely changed a lot, because it seems to kind of be because I know a lot, because many decades ago a lot of the freight lines used to have platforms at train stations. I don't particularly know why, if I'm being honest, but probably because of the old steam trains that used to come past, and of course now they've electrified the lines, and they probably wouldn't have seen a point of electrifying the goods line, as it's always just diesel trains going past anyways and steam trains.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could imagine that it's changed quite a lot. Yeah, in
Yeah.
129 years, is it? Did I do my math
Yeah,
right?
1895. In the year of 2023, Bankstown Station saw 1,135,760 tap-ons or tap-offs at the station. That pretty much converts down to about 3,112 daily passengers at the station, which I must say is a little bit lower than a lot of the other Bankstown Line stations as well. So there is a hidden signal box at Canterbury Station, which from what I believe does not exist anymore. However, I must say I do believe I actually know when the signal box was removed, as in around 2013, 2014-ish, when they extended the light rail line down to Dulwich Hill. The Metropolitan Goods Line actually used to go kind of towards Darling Harbour, but I believe it was fairly disused. So at Dulwich Hill Station, there used to be a big junction branching off to the now existing tram stop. So I wouldn't be surprised if as a result of that, they may have upgraded the signaling or something, because the signal box was kind of like there's some mentions about it up until about 2009. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was removed around then. But I must say it's probably a bit of a missed opportunity, as it would have been pretty cool to have kind of like a signal box there, and I'm sure they would have restored it and everything, made it look quite nice. And it was apparently a two-story signal box, effectively the same as all the ones that you'd see across the world, and had like a wood framed sliding windows on three sides with a blank rear wall. Um, Even had a enclosed toilet in there, so I definitely think that that's probably where they had the signaler going. I'm not sure if it would have been for the suburban train line or the goods line, but back then it was kind of a mix of both at both lines were used as both suburban and goods lines.
That's really cool. I had no idea that there was a signal box there. Kind of reminds me when you said it, could have been preserved kind of thing. That Parramatta, that's the one. The signal box at Parramatta and Katoomba and Mount Victoria. They've done quite well, sort of preserving those ones.
And that wraps up today's episode 4 of Canterbury Station on the Bankstown Line, filmed with Phil from Sydney Trains Vlogs. Phil, would you like to shout out your channel to everyone?
Yeah, it's Sydney Trains Vlogs. Be sure to give that a follow, and also Elliot, give give him a subscribe as well if you haven't done so already.
Yes, and I also would say, especially because of the topic, check out what I call Phil's secret channel, Abandoned Oz, as well, because I'm sure you'd be posting a lot of good stuff about the history of the train lines. I saw a few videos on that actually. So definitely make sure you check out Phil's channel, Sydney Trains Vlogs, and his second channel, Abandoned Oz, as well, because he makes some very good videos on the Bankstown line there and generally on historical stuff, Sydney trains, metro, everything.